Hello, everyone. I'd like to start with a commentary on the guy who was in last month's video.
I don't think it's good for our country.
And I couldn't agree more. Unfortunately, you spent so much time complaining about other stuff that I got fed up before we got to the green leafy point of the matter. So let's press on and see just what this guy's issue is, shall we?
Get to the prescription drugs and opioid crisis in a moment, but what is it that you know as an addict that people who have responded to this survey don't?
Well, no, I
about
think,
marijuana.
First of all, we know that it's not the marijuana of even my generation or previous generations. We're talking about a marijuana with much higher THC levels than ever before.
And of course, you'd never make a claim like that without presenting peer-reviewed scientific evidence to back it up. Just like I'm not a furry.
Plus, you have these e-cigarettes, and it's also edible. And these gummy bears.
Because, of course, pot brownies weren't a thing before legalization. Wait a minute.
It's also, you can drink it. It's in like these elixirs is what they call it.
The nerve of them. How dare science realize something actually helps people and then develop multiple ways to ingest it?
You don't just have to smoke it.
No. Most of the people who probably responded to your survey imagine someone doing a couple bong hits or smoking a couple of joints, right? We're not.
Because he's not just a politician, he's also a mind reader. Hey, tell me what I'm thinking right now. I'll give you a hint.
Talking about that. We're talking about an industry that's mass producing these THC candy bars, that's mass producing these grape sodas loaded with THC. I guarantee.
Whoa, hold on there a moment. All the stuff that I've seen available on the open market is marketed as containing CBD, which is a completely different chemical, not THC, which is only available from licensed dispensaries and usually requires a prescription. So, are you misinformed yourself, or are you being deliberately deceptive, aka lying?
I guarantee you, if you ever showed the audience that did this poll what this looks like, it's got nothing to do with what's in their head, a couple of joints and a bong hit. Guaranteed. So
there is actually a small possibility that he's right. If nobody who took the survey has been in a gas station or convenience store in the past year or so.
What happens? Right now, you've got Wall Street backing a new corporate investment. And what are they investing in? Addiction. They're not investing in a couple of people on their leisure on a weekend, a month, in their privacy of their own home. They're talking about investing in a product that's going to be more plentiful than Starbucks. That's what these pot shots are in Colorado and Seattle. So we just have to hold our horses and understand there are going to be enormous consequences to us giving the green light to a whole new industry that's founded upon addiction.
Oh, for Pete's sake. We covered this last month. Would you please stop lying? By the way, kids, in case you forgot, he's a politician, so don't hold your breath.
The brain
Should it be used medicinally? Do you agree with that?
We have something called Marinol. It's FDA approved. I am all for marijuana products that are able to treat certain types of diseases, to go through the FDA process and get approved. Right now, no one knows what they're buying, right?
Citation needed, please. Even if it turned out you were right, all of the quote-unquote supplements and herbal remedies on the market have the same thing going on. So you're going to make all of them go through the FDA too? Taking bets that his answer would be no.
That can be a hazard to public health. If someone needs, the beneficial effects of some component in this plant, then we know what to do. We don't eat willow bark from a tree. We buy aspirin. We have a process for doing that. It's called FDA. The reason
it's called pharmaceutical manufacturing. The governing body that regulates it in the United States is called the FDA. Can't you say anything that's factually accurate?
What we do is we want to protect the public's health. We're doing nothing of this sort by just calling it in a blanket sense medicine. There are people with their medicine cards who are going in there using it for all kinds of disorders, so to speak, that have nothing to do in any medical sense to treating the things that may actually be medicinal.
And your vast knowledge in the medical field is the reason you became a politician instead of, oh, I don't know, a doctor.
So this is another example of, that concept of medicinal purposes being really a Trojan horse to get people to use. Because the very same people who are selling you the fact that this is for medicine.
They like that it's being associated with medicine and recreational use.
It de-escalates the sense of worry and, consequences of using marijuana. Because if it's used for medicine, well, there's nothing wrong with it.
Do you just assume everybody's as stupid as you and work from there? Heroin, cocaine, and radium were all marketed as medications at one time or another. Why are none of them marketed that way now? Because people with a lot more training and, frankly, intelligence than you realize that they do a lot more harm than good. A lot of people with that same degree of intelligence and training have studied marijuana, and yet it's still on the market. Now, why do you think that is? Taking bets, he'll say that tens of thousands of scientists were bought off or some other conspiracy theory BS.
So I think, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to learn our lesson until it's too late. Because frankly,
you think we're on the path to legalization?
This thing is on the fast track, and it's being we've greased the skids with money like you can't believe. The public health doesn't stand a chance in this fight because we're up against money that is going to continue to grow as this industry spreads.
Let me see. We've already had misrepresenting facts and presenting falsehoods as facts. Now we've also got poisoning the well and fear-mongering. Hey, I just got BS bingo! And as an added bonus, thanks to Adobe Rush's weird sense of timing, I also have my thumbnail.
What do you say to those who argue that, as you brought up alcohol earlier, that alcohol has far more deadly consequences and addictive consequences than marijuana?
I don't disagree with that. That two wrongs don't make a right. That's the faulty logic that the opponents use. Oh, well, alcohol's worse. Why don't you do something about that? Well, alcohol's already legal, and there's no putting that horse back in the barn. Let's stop this horse from getting out of the barn.
Geez, this guy mentions horses more than some bronies I know. Also, I think I have a better idea. Let's just burn down the damn barn by presenting all of the scientific evidence and letting grown adults make up their own minds whether or not the benefit is worth the risk.
It's a question, well, what floor do they drop you from, the 10th floor or the 4th floor? You're still in trouble. And
I know what floor I'd like to drop you from, but I don't think there is a building that tall. Dear YouTube, that was a joke. I am not endorsing or advocating violence against anyone.
And people can downplay the impact of marijuana, but it's on kids that I'm most concerned about because it's the developing brain. This is a very important formative time of the brain development. And for kids to be exposed to this high concentration of THC while their adolescent brain is starting to develop, we know already that this has detrimental effects. Why in a nation where we're so challenged with how to cope with stress, how to deal with the complexities of this world, would we want to affect the brain, the most important organ in our body, which mediates motivation, cognition, it's sentiments, it's everything that makes us who we are. And I don't think it's good for our public health to be polluting the most important thing that we have.
You mean the higher concentrations of THC that you never present any evidence of? As for your alleged concern for children, there are laws in place that restrict the sale of alcohol and tobacco to persons over the age of 21. I'm sure these laws can be extended to include cannabinoid products, as they have been with e-cigarettes, if they haven't been already. So I'm afraid your attempted appeal to emotion only succeeds in giving me a bonus spot on BS Bingo.
I want to get back to the poll because it also found that 47% of parents who use weed say they have consumed marijuana in front of their adult children, shared it with them, or done both. You have young children yourself.
Oh, great, the stupid's getting contagious. What the hell does how you interact with your small children have to do with how you interact with your adult children? Unless your parenting methods need serious reconsideration on one end or the other.
How do you feel about that statistic?
Well, what I find troubling is that, when I was growing up, fetal alcohol syndrome, the number of babies born to alcoholic mothers, was always the single largest source of intellectual disability. And my family, having started Special Olympics and the National Institute for Children and Human Development, named after my aunt, we care about intellectual disabilities and preventing them.
Oh, look, virtue signaling. I'm going to get coverall on BS bingo at this rate.
And the most preventable way of interceding and preventing intellectual disabilities is to address a mother's alcoholism before that ends up poisoning her baby. Same can be said for opiates, because now we're seeing a sharp increase in the number of opiate-addicted babies. And the same is going to be true with marijuana. There are going to be profound consequences.
Right. Just like all the gambling addicts and nymphomaniacs whose children have the exact same addictions as them at birth. Look, addiction literally works on a case-by-case basis and can vary wildly, but for the most part it can fall into one of two categories. There's physical addiction, which involves an actual alteration of the body chemistry to behave as though the addictive substance was a requirement. And there's psychological addiction, wherein it's the brain that's convinced that the addictive stimulant is in fact required. Only one of these, the first one, can be passed on from mother to child in utero. And unfortunately for your argument, in over 99% of cases, weed addiction falls into the second one.
Now just take for a fact,
because there's no way in hell he's going to provide any evidence.
We have X number of people using today, and we know that a certain percentage of them are going to be subject to addiction. Not all, but let's just say 20% of those who use have a higher risk for developing an addiction to marijuana. Well, if you do 100x, you're making it 100x to the 20% that are prone to addiction, meaning by your logic, you're clearly going to see an increased number of people with the disease of addiction to.
Wow, I'm really impressed. That argument has got to be, without question, the best job of pulling numbers out of your ass without context that I've ever seen this side of creationism or anti-vaxxers. I've about had it with Bungee Brain here, so I'm going to let him summarize my thoughts on his arguments.
Does this really make sense? Common sense tells me that's not a smart thing.
Before I get out of here, since I am putting this video out in May, barely, I thought it would be fun to share a picture from my junior prom done by my old friend She-Wolf 2013. I am so glad I grew into my ears. People thought I was part Fennec. Until next time, love you bunches, and as always, stay sane, everybody. Smoochies! If you like what I do, but want to see somebody do it way better, be sure to check out Sir Sick, the Social Inequality Crusader. Links in the description below. And tell him Susie sent you.